Hi there, my name is Richard Pavlidis. Welcome to another lesson, and today we're going to talk about diminished scales. So diminished scales really open up a new world of harmony, or at least that's how I see them. So the first thing you need to understand about them is that because the arpeggios are just stacked minor thirds on top of each other, there are only actually three different arpeggios and scales. So there's one that covers C, E flat, G flat and A, one that covers C sharp, E, G and B flat, and one that covers D, F, A flat and B. I'll give a really quick demonstration of that. So the C diminished arpeggio is stacked minor thirds from C, so C, E flat, G flat, A. Then the E flat diminished arpeggio is exactly the same notes, but in a different order. E flat, G flat, A, C. Then the G flat arpeggio is the same notes again, but starting on G flat, A, C, E flat. And then finally the A diminished arpeggio is the same again. A, C, E flat, G flat. So there are only three different diminished arpeggios, really. And now we come to fill in the gaps between the arpeggios, between the chord tones. And we can do that in two ways. One is known as a half-whole diminished scale, which means that we go in the order of semitone, tone, so it's just semitone, tone, semitone, tone. The other is the other way around, so whole, half. They sound like this. Half-whole. Whole half. Now generally the half-whole diminished scale is used over dominant chords, so that's one of our many harmonic options over dominant chords. And the whole half diminished scale is used over actual diminished chords. There's a lot of overlap with this language, and for every example that I give you of one person doing something, there'll be someone else doing something else, choosing a different scale over a chord. But as a general guide, this is a good place to start. This is how it works. So I'm going to first show you a few examples of the whole half diminished scale being used over diminished chords, and then a few examples of the half-whole diminished scale being used over dominant chords. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. One, two, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so there are a few phrases. Now next I'm going to take you through a few common appearances of diminished chords in common jazz chord progressions. So the first one is as a kind of substitution for a 6 chord in a 1, 6, 2, 5 chord progression. So here I've got C major, E flat diminished, which could also be C diminished, D minor 7, and then G7. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And the next one is a very similar use, but after a 4 chord, then a minor 4 chord, then you've got a 3, then a kind of descending idea. Then you've got the minor 3 diminished, and then 2, 5, 1. A very common appearance, a very famous appearance of this is in the tune All the Things You Are. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So So the next use of diminished chords is in a sort of ascending idea. So we start off with a 1 major chord, then we have a flat 2 diminished chord, a 2 minor chord, a flat 3 diminished chord, then we have a 3, 6, 2, 5. Off the top of my head, one use of this chord progression is in the jazz standard Mean to Me. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. The next example uses a diminished chord as a kind of delayed resolution to the 1 chord. A very famous use of this is in the jazz standard Corcovado. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. The next example uses a diminished chord to create tension between a 4 and a 1 chord. A very common use of this is in rhythm changes, one of the most common jazz formats. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And now here's that progression at the speed that it occurs in a rhythm changes. So 2 beats for every chord instead of 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And now finally, this will be the subject of next week's lesson, but here are a couple of brief examples of the diminished scale being used over dominant chords. First in a 2-5-1, and then in a 3-6-2-5. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So I hope this has been useful so far. We'll continue with diminished scales next week, and I'll show you how to apply them over dominant chords, among other things. So download the PDF, have a practice, and I'll see you next week. Cheers.